I was spending the summer working in a village in mid-Wales and, without my own car, hitching was the only option. Because it was fun, quick and so much more reliable than public transportation, I carried on. I met so many nice people. Drivers would often go out of their way to take me on my journey or insist on buying me cups of tea and sandwiches. Each ride seemed like an adventure and a new challenge. Then, in April 1980, I was picked up by a man who never told me his name, but was the strangest I met thumbing rides. It was an encounter I would never forget. I used to put the men who gave me a lift into two categories. There were the protective fatherly types who warned me against hitching, and leering chancers who made dirty jokes. There was a slipway before the motorway started again, and I noticed a blue van parked on it. The man leaning on it was looking over. "You want a lift?" he asked, walking towards me. It seemed odd he would offer to drive me, without being asked, but because I was caught off guard I told him where I was heading. "I'll give you a ride." "Throw your rucksack in," he said, motioning to the empty space in the back of his van. I told him I'd rather have it in the front with me, but he replied, "It's perfectly safe, don't worry." I tried to insist, but he kept repeating that I had nothing to worry about. He even started to get a bit angry. I began to think I should turn down his offer, but I hadn't mastered the art of refusing a lift. It felt rude to say no, and I had been brought up to be polite. Then, abruptly, his mood changed. "Actually, I feel like a cup of tea," he announced. "Okay, I'll just carry on hitching," I said, secretly relieved. But he said I should join him, come for tea. What's the harm in a cup of tea? It was more like an order than a question, and there was something about him that made it impossible for me to say no. In the service station he asked all about my family. Sternly, he demanded to know what my parents thought about my hitchhiking. I admitted they were unhappy about it, but they understood it was my choice. "That's ridiculous," he said, angry again. "They obviously don't care about you." No parent who cared about their daughter would let her hitchhike. After telling me I'd never make it home before dark, he invited me to come and stay with him and his family. My immediate thought was that his wife would probably be furious that he had brought home a young female hitchhiker, unannounced. When I tried to defend my parents against his attacks, it just seemed to make him angrier, so I let it go. He had a volcanic temper, and I remember thinking what an unpleasant man he was, but I wanted to get home and didn't feel physically threatened. In my head I had put him in the fatherly category. He wasn't nice, but he certainly did not seem to have any sexual motive. So when he opened the back of the van again, I relented, throwing my rucksack inside. In retrospect, I think he was very clever at manipulating me. He felt familiar, and I didn't want to annoy him further. As we drove back onto the M5, he didn't say much. I didn't either. Then, about 15 minutes down the motorway, out of the blue, he announced I was heading in the wrong direction. I knew he was wrong, but he wouldn't listen. "I have to see a friend nearby," he continued. "I'll drop you off. You can cross the road and I'll pick you up on the way back if you're still there when I return." I was alarmed because it's illegal to cross the motorway, and if I followed his instructions I would be heading the wrong way. I also knew it was singularly unlikely anyone would stop for me on the M5. But the volcano erupted again, and he even started arguing belligerently that we were not on the motorway at all, despite the blue signs. He was so upset I actually thought he was going to lean across and hit me. so when he stopped I did what he had said and got out of the van. I crossed the motorway and watched as he drove off. There was not a car in sight heading my way, but I started walking and stuck my thumb out. Seemingly out of nowhere, a lorry pulled up. When I told the driver where I was going, he agreed to drop me back at the service station I had just left. From there I soon got a lift heading back south. I got home late and told my mother and sister what had happened. I wasn't exactly scared by the experience, just curious. But over the years when I thought about that day, little things occurred to me. I remembered the man had indicated he was a builder, yet there was no equipment in the back of his van, and it seemed so clean and tidy. Then, in 1994, news broke about a couple arrested on suspicion of murder. Later that year, Fred West and his wife, Rosemary, were found guilty of torturing, raping and killing 12 young women between 1967 and 1987, the majority at their home. It wasn't until the end of the trial that I picked up a Sunday paper and saw a picture of the young Fred West, photographed around 1980. I recognized him immediately as the man in the blue van.